Hello everyone, welcome back to the RetroBreak Podcast. This is episode 53, and I've got a bit of a sad story to share in this week's episode. In the last one, I said I was very much looking forward to starting Panzer Dragoon Saga, and my goal was to stream it over the next few weeks to have all of the footage ready to build a video review. Well, it started off great, I enjoyed playing it for the first few days, but then on day 3, it went fine on day 3. On day 4, I tried to turn the Sega Saturn on and basically I got a purple screen across both of the displays. There was nothing coming out of the capture on the other end. And since then, the Saturn's just completely dead. It won't turn on at all. I can't get any video signal out of it whatsoever. I've asked around on the internet. No one really seems to know what's wrong with it. And the annoying thing is, I have another Sega Saturn. I could easily just get that one out of the loft and continue playing on there. But my save file is on the internal memory, and I don't know how to get it off there. People have been saying, why don't you just play it on an emulator? You won't run into any of the issues with trying to use the original hardware. That's not the problem. The game is on there. I don't want to spend another 10 hours getting back to where I was off stream just to be able to, play it on stream again. And I was having such a great time. It really is a fantastic game, and I don't know what to do now in order to get myself back into the groove of playing it. Do I, like some people have suggested, do I get the Saturn core for the Mister and find the ISO online and play the game that way? It would also include trying to find out some way of getting the Sega Saturn controller into USB in order to play it on the Mister. I'm not entirely sure, but at least then I wouldn't need to worry about anything like the disc not reading properly, because there was a few instances in the game where the cutscenes kind of skipped a little bit because I think the laser on the Saturn was going, so some of the voice samples started overlapping or started kind of cutting off. So we'll see. I'll definitely get back to it at some point, and I do want to end up playing it all the way through because from what I've played so far, at least, I really do think it is a fantastic game. And I've just been blown away by the quality of the production values of the graphics. They're a little bit basic, but in terms of the textures and the animations and the frame rate, it's all been fantastic. The game has such a nice atmosphere, and it has such a nice, unique story that's actually really easy to follow, which is actually more surprising than you would think. A lot of the RPGs back then kind of have weird storylines which aren't really that easy to keep up with, but for whatever reason in Panzer Dragoon Saga I was very easily able to keep up with it the entire time. The locations are really varied. I love the different gameplay styles, like there's the on foot bits where you're walking around the different villages and speaking to people and finding different items, and the on foot bits are done really well too. There's like really nice smooth controls, there's loads of interesting NPCs to talk to. There was even a day and night cycle, which I did not expect at all, and depending on what time of day it is, when you go into these different locations, different things happen. You can visit different areas, different doors are unlocked, there's different people awake at night than in the day. It's just such a nice game. And the battle system as well, I haven't even got into that, and my god, the battle system is one of the coolest battle systems that I've ever encountered in any JRPG ever. The first time I saw it, as I was going through the tutorials, I thought, yeah, this sounds interesting. And then the more you get into it and the more you build up your different abilities and the different ways of attacking and all of the different combinations that you can do, it's just such a cool system. I love it. I really, really love it. There's the directional thing where depending on what part of the enemy you're facing, basically, depends on whether you're safe from their attacks or whether you've got like an advantage for your attacks. There's all sorts of different skills that you can acquire. There's a really cool feature where you can actually change your class as you're playing, so you can actually choose, do you want more attack power, do you want more defense, do you want more spiritual power, which is for the sort of ranged attacks that you get throughout the game. It's just such a cool and unique system, and I've never seen anything like it. It kind of takes the active time battle system from something like Final Fantasy VI or Chrono Trigger and kind of just evolves upon that concept, and it just works fantastically. And I loved the flying around on the back of the dragon and doing all the different puzzles between the villages. And it's just an incredible game. I just don't know how to play it now, which is very, very sad, because I was hoping to come here and tell you all how much I've been enjoying it and tell you how much longer's left and to tell you to come and follow me on Twitch and on YouTube Live and everything so you can come and watch me play it. Well, all that's out the window. I'll be playing something else live next week. I'm not really sure what it's going to be just yet, but feel free to join me over at twitch.tv/RetroBreak_live, and the same on YouTube at RetroBreak_live as well. I think I'll be playing some Game Boy Color games because I'm trying to get some footage for my top Game Boy Color games video, which is almost done. I have 3 more games that I need to buy for the Game Boy and Game Boy Color compatible games, so the ones with the black cartridges. And then I think there's 5 more that I need for the Game Boy Color exclusives one, which I'm hoping to do in November. So I get paid in a few days' time, and when I get paid, I'm going to buy the final 3 games for the Game Boy Color / Game Boy video. And then for the next one, then I'm going to do the Game Boy Color exclusives one in November, so I hope you're all looking forward to that. And hopefully I'll be doing some streams to capture some footage for both of those systems. And I've kind of got to figure out the best way of capturing the footage. Do I want to use the Mister? Do I want to use the Analog Pocket? And then I have to decide, do I want filters on or not? Do you think it looks better on YouTube seeing Game Boy Color games just in pure pixels? Or do you like having those filters to make it look kind of like you're looking through a portable LCD screen? Let me know in the comments if you're listening to this anywhere where there are comments. So that's kind of what I wanted to talk about for the topic. Now let's move on to some of the games that I've been playing recently, and I've actually been playing one game on my brand new Analog Pocket. I got the lime green version, which I'm very happy to have, and it also solved a lot of issues that I had with my original black Analog Pocket from back on launch day. So first of all, I'm really happy about that. I might do a full video on it explaining the benefits of these new models compared to the originals and why I decided to buy another one. But there's been one game on there that I've been really enjoying playing, and that is Mega Man Battle Network 1. I've never properly played the first one before. I actually jumped into that series on Battle Network 3. So going back to the beginning, yeah, you can feel that it's a little more basic compared to number 3. But on the other hand, I still really love the concept of the Mega Man Battle Network series in general. And despite some of the shortcomings in this first game, I'm still very much enjoying my time with it. It is a little bit frustrating that a lot of the online areas in that game are just mazes, and they do take a long time to get around, and I did get a little bit bored right at the start because there's one bit where you have to switch from being Mega Man back to being Lan and exploring the school, but you have to do really boring menial tasks like count how many doors there are in the school in order to type in a combination code as Mega Man to progress somewhere else, and then a few minutes later you're thrown back to the school and you have to go and speak to so many people, and I don't know how many people are wearing hats or something, and then go and tell Mega Man, and then you can open the next door. So that was a very slow and frustrating start, but since then it's picked up a lot. I love the battle system. Even in this first game, I really think they nailed the concept of the battles, the way that you move around the grid and you choose your different cards to use as attacks. And obviously it's a very popular battle system. There's been a few indie games that have taken heavy inspiration from it, and I can definitely see why. And I'm about 5 hours in now, and I do definitely plan on playing all the way through it. And if you saw my pickups video last week, I also picked up Battle Network 2, 3, and 6 as well. So I only have 4 and 5 left to get if I want to get the full complete in-box collection. And I would love to do that at some point. I know they've been released on the Switch and the PlayStation, but I would love to get the originals and play them through on the Analog Pocket. So I've been very much enjoying playing through Mega Man Battle Network 1 again. Well, again, for the first time. I played it a little bit in the past, but this is my first time properly experiencing the start of that series. And I also really loved the Mega Man Star Force games on the DS as well, and I've never played number 3 on the DS, so maybe that's something that I could try and get in the future, and potentially do a video on the Star Force series, because I never really see anyone talking about those games. The only other 2 games that I've been playing recently are both on the PlayStation 5, and I just finished playing Astro Bot just before I came up here to record this, and I'm really enjoying my time with that so far. It does seem quite simple in terms of mechanics at least, but the levels are all really inventive so far, the graphics look amazing, and the music's really nice too, so I'm very much enjoying my time with that, even if it is a little bit by the numbers and not quite up to Nintendo's standards, but for what you can get on PlayStation, it's definitely the best there is to offer in terms of 3D platformers. So definitely recommend Astro Bot if you've got a PlayStation 5 and you want something that feels kind of Nintendo but with a lot of PlayStation love thrown in there. And the only other game that I've been playing on the PS5 recently has been kind of a disappointment. This is a game that I pre-ordered because I enjoy racing games and I wanted something new to play after wrapping up Need for Speed Heat, or Need for Speed Unbounded I guess was the most recent one. When I wrapped that up last year, I wanted another game in the same sort of style, so I pre-ordered Test Drive Unlimited, and I have to say that so far I'm quite disappointed by it. It seems like it's online only, and you always have to wait for races, and you can't even pause during a race, even if it's just a race with NPCs, which is very, very strange. The graphics aren't very good. The frame rate and the resolution aren't great either. There's a lot of things that kind of irk me about it, but in terms of the core gameplay, there is something really good there. Like, if you look under the surface with all of these surface level issues, there is a really nice driving experience in there somewhere. It's just unfortunately got this really bad wrapper around it, and I hope they can address these issues in the future, because they do seem like things that can be fixed, but I don't really know whether the developer's actually going to bother doing that. So for the meantime, I have to say that Test Drive Unlimited is probably like a 5 out of 10 for me, and kind of a disappointment. Do I regret pre-ordering it? Yeah, I kind of do. It feels like a little bit of a waste of money at the moment, but maybe I'll play it some more in the future, and maybe I'll enjoy it a bit more than I am doing right now. And now for the part of the podcast that I really wanted to talk about, and that is the project that I've been doing recently. So if you saw on my main channel a few weeks ago, I uploaded a video about my game dev journey and how I'd kind of given up on game development, but then doing the Game Maker's Toolkit Game Jam kind of reintroduced me to game design and development once again. So I've actually been taking it a lot more seriously now, and thanks to a lot of the comments on that video, I kind of have now a good path to follow, and I know that I really need to try and brush up on my programming skills if I want to actually make something worthwhile. So I've actually been going through the Godot training website, and it gives you kind of interactive code examples. And the one that I've been looking at earlier today was explaining how vector 2Ds work. So basically a vector 2D is an X and Y coordinate in 2D space. And there's also a vector 3D, which includes the Z-axis as well, and how you can use loops and how you can use the process function in order to change those vector coordinates during runtime. So like if you were holding right on the keyboard, you could have a function to say check if it's holding right, and if it is, adjust the vector 2 by vector 2 plus this amount times delta, and that's how far you would move in a certain direction depending on how the key was pressed. So that's one thing I learned today. The other thing that I learned was how to do loops in GD script, which is a little bit different to C and C#, which is kind of the programming language that I'd used in the past. So that was interesting to know. And yeah, I'm really trying to get to grips with the engine. I've been making my own big document to try and get to grips with how everything works, how the UI works, how the different nodes interact with each other, how you can use signals in order to see whether certain things have been interacted with. There's a lot to get through, but I'm actually taking it very seriously this time, and I'm taking a lot of notes, and I'm not going to move on until I've understood all of the concepts beforehand. And if there is anything that I don't understand, I'll stop the tutorial, I'll go away and research it, and then I'll come back again, and hopefully by the end of doing this tutorial series, I'll feel like I'm in a much better position to actually start making something from scratch, rather than just following tutorials, which is what I've been doing up until this point. And I think that is the key ingredient that's missing. I can follow all these tutorials and I can get really far with it, but if I try and do something from scratch on my own, I have no idea where to start because I'm not following anyone else's advice or step-by-step formula. So to do it all by myself is the goal, no matter how basic. So I'll keep you updated on this podcast whether I actually make any progress. The next one of these episodes is coming out in 2 weeks, so hopefully I'll have some good updates for you then. So that is my Learning Godot project. The other thing that I'm working on in terms of YouTube is trying to get all of the Game Boy Color games that I need in order to do these top games videos, but it is quite expensive, and maybe that's my own fault for wanting them complete in box, but I do feel like having the games complete in box for when I make these episodes will make the videos stand out even more, because there's tons of top games videos out there on YouTube, but literally none of them actually show the games, the packaging, the cartridge, the manual, all of that kind of stuff that surrounds the game as well as just the gameplay. So I feel like by having these things, it will add that little extra bit of spice to my videos that hopefully is what's needed in order to push them further into the algorithm. And I know I shouldn't care about the views, but if I want my channel to do well, I want to try and do everything in my power to make that happen. And I really think that owning the physical games and showing them off in the videos is one of the ways to do that, as well as obviously just really good production values and getting the best quality picture and just having interesting games to show off and presenting them in a fashion that's easy to understand for everyone who's watching. And I think I'm fairly good at all of that now, so it's just a case of actually getting the games and recording the videos. And next year I'm going to be doing a lot more of that, because I've been planning my video schedule for next year, and I talked about it at the start of the year. I have this checklist that I want to try and tick off as I'm making videos on my channel, and this year I've kind of been neglecting it, so next year I want to really try and get back on track. I'm aiming to do 2 every single month, Whether that actually happens or not, watch this space. But, for now, that is the plan. That's the goal. It might be quite expensive, but I'm hoping that because the videos do well, they'll end up paying for themselves over time and I'll be able to pay everything off. So it's a little bit of a gamble, but I feel like if I want to try and make this grow into something that's sustainable, I really need to get these videos out there, and that's the best way to do it. So that is it for the projects that I've been working on. And finally, to end this episode, let's talk about some of the best content that I've watched over the past 2 weeks. So obviously I've been watching a lot of game dev videos again, a lot of Thomas Brush, a lot of Good Gifts, a lot of all the popular gaming YouTube channels out there. I've been watching a lot of programming videos and kind of different programming learning styles for different people, which has been interesting. And I hopefully have got some good out of that. But there is one video in particular that I wanted to talk about here, which is actually more related to my game dev video that I made a few weeks back now. So in that video, there was 2 programs that I said I used as a kid that kind of got me started on this game dev journey that I since gave up on. One of the things was the 3D Game Maker, which was like a maze building program where you had like drag and drop different things that you could put into the levels and make really basic first-person shooters and really basic racing games and things like that. And the other thing that I had around the same time was a program called Dark Basic, which was actually a 3D programming language, which I had no concept of at the time whatsoever, although some people in the comments on the video said if I'd spent a little bit more time trying to understand that, then I might have done better in uni and done better in programming in general. But, can't change the past, that's just how it went. But anyway, those 2 programs I still have really fond memories of, and I was curious to see whether anyone else had talked about them, and I found this amazing video documentary that was released a few months ago, so it's fairly recent, called The Game Creators versus the Fans. And it was a game engine documentary about how the game creators, which are the people behind the 3D game engine and Dark Basic, how they've built up these different game engines over time and how they've kind of annoyed their fan base in some way. So it's a really fascinating story. It was about an hour and a half, but it went by really fast. It was very well edited. They had the director for the studio and some people who were like fans of previous versions of their software come on and do interviews. It was really fascinating to see the thought process behind how these programs actually got made and where they're trying to go with it in the future. I had no idea that things like 3D Game Maker and Dark Basic had like continued evolving up until this day with things like First Person Creator, and now there's something called Game Guru or Game Guru Max, which are like really easy to get into game engines, but apparently they have a lot of problems according to this documentary that I watched. But it's been a really fascinating journey into the just the behind the scenes of everything, and you could see the passion behind this developer who's trying to make these tools, and it was so cool to watch. So I'll put a link to it in the description for this podcast. Definitely go and check it out because I thought it was absolutely fascinating. Even if you're not into game engines, I still feel like it's worth watching. So anyway, that is it for this episode of the podcast. Hope you enjoyed listening, and I'll see you all again in 2 weeks' time. Goodbye!